All right, welcome to another installment of the Fragments of Silicon reviews. 4 reviews up this week. The first of which is it's now titled Edgar Allan Poe's Interactive Horror 1995 edition. But as the blurb states here, originally released as The Dark Eye, this 1995 cult classic adapts Edgar Allan Poe's most macabre tales, navigate a nightmarish world filled with uncanny stop-motion puppetry narrated by William S. Burroughs. Solve twisted puzzles and experience madness through the eyes of both the murderer and victim. In order to pad out that playtime. Oh boy. I'm not joking about that either. They do live up to that promise, but dear God, did that just feel like so much padding.
Mm-hmm.
At least the segment I played, which was the casket. How do you pronounce this?
The Cask of Monte Cristo?
No, the cask of
Amontillado?
Amontillado.
Yeah, Amontillado. There we go.
Yes. Brain.
Yeah. Because you very much do get to play both the murder victim and the murderer. It's basically the same area, just a bit different in the conversational.
Mm.
Which means I had to walk around a lot of dank cave space. Honestly, that's my biggest problem with the game here. It's for all of its interactivity, narrative prowess, there's a lot of walking around drab, nondescript areas. But before we get too much deeper into that, I will preface this by stating from this point forward, we're going to be calling this The Dark Eye, and not this, well, honestly, mouthful of gibberish that was forced upon this particular title. Apparently, due to trademark issues.
That happens.
Yeah, I believe Golic said that there was like a tabletop or pen and paper.
Yes, one of the in Germany, like the biggest tabletop RPG game is called Die Schwarze Auge, and then it's been localized available in the US for like 10 years or so now, I think. Which is obviously since this game was originally published.
Right.
Less than 10. I think it was more like 5 years.
The point is there is something active that's preventing, at the very least, this game being advertised as The Dark Eye, or they have to do what's a bit of a sleight of hand in deception, or perhaps dishonest advertising, calling it originally released as The Dark Eye or The Former Dark Eye. Mm-hmm. Apparently, this is A-okay for advertising purposes.
Mm-hmm.
You can actually refer to a trademark thing as long as you put in the former something. Though this might depend on the product as well. Like, I'm sure something really big time with a lot of lawyers, it's going to have a harder time than something like this.
What a delightful time that was.
Like, so putting that aside, this game, at least the version we got, likes to tout itself as a restoration.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, no. I'm going to put that to bed right here and now. This isn't a restoration. This is like a restoration, like that is remastering, remaking, whatever. That actually requires going into the game and making it available on modern systems. This is an emulation.
Yes.
Okay.
For anyone wondering, this is running in Scum VM.
Which is a bit of a curious beast, actually. I'm gonna guess Scum VM has changed their policies. Like, I want to say this isn't the first commercially released classic adventure game that's running on Scum VM, but I do know, like, back in the day, like about 15 or so years ago, you absolutely could not use Scum VM in commercial applications. I know this because one of the many humongous adventure games, Pajama Sam and the like there, one of those used Scum VM for the Wii edition, and they had to take that off market because that was against the Scum VM terms of service. So either the rules have changed or they worked out something with the Scum VM Foundation, however that works. The point is, this is an emulated game, which could be a good or bad thing, depending on your perspective, because it was probably the best approach. Because this is the absolute worst kind of game to try and remaster, or at least among them. Because it's from the era of the pre-rendered. Indeed, to further exacerbate things, I think everything in this game is like pre-rendered.
Thereabouts, yeah.
So why does this matter? Because they all had because they were all rendered before they were put in the game. That means they were locked in at a certain resolution, and thus options for making this game work with modern day resolutions are limited. Like, in the case of this, it's just, using emulation and letting God sort it out.
Yeah. Because I highly doubt the original sources are around to actually remaster, because not to tip the hat too much, this game did not do well back in the day.
It's not just that it didn't do well. It was put out by an obscure publisher that went out of business. I'm not sure, like, shortly after this game, but it's like, looking up on Wikipedia, apparently Inescape was backed by a couple of Warner subsidiaries, which explains why they've got, for a 1995 PC adventure game, such a star-studded cast. Now that's weird to say, but they're touting. So they're touting William S. Burroughs. If you don't know who he is, ultra short version is he was one of the foremost thinkers of the Beat generation. Most famous work, The Naked Lunch. Also famous for shooting his common law wife, but that's beside the point.
I'm pretty sure if Kevin was here, he would probably go into a lot more detail.
This may be outside of his area of expertise, because this is like dealing with actual art versus pop culture stuff.
Fair.
Like, But a famous author, in order to heighten the literary connection, because this is all about Edgar Allan Poe, probably the foremost Gothic poet in the English language. Also, it touts a soundtrack from Thomas Dolby. She blinded me with science. At least in terms of actual pop culture, he's actually much more successful behind the scenes as a producer and a session musician. He's one of those types. Just go watch Todd in the Shadows episode on him if you want to learn more. The point is, you can see this was in the infancy of using celebrity type figures. Not the only instance, oh god, around this time we had Rise of the Robots. Anyone else remember this thing?
I do not.
Rings a bell.
It was an absolutely horrid fighting game, and one of the things
I
never
remember that
played
one. It was on Matt McMuscle's as the worst fighting game a while ago. I think it was champion for a couple of weeks.
Regardless, the thing I remember was the box, proudly proclaiming that it had music by one of the members of Queen. I mean, for you Spyro heads out there, the soundtrack being made by the drummer of the Police, same deal. That's or fellow obscure adventure game, though probably not as obscure as this one is. In I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, had actual author Harlan Ellison as Am. So it's the beginning of celebrity mergers, because video games, especially on the cutting edge, are getting sophisticated enough to have real music, quote unquote, and real actors speak more than a bit crushed soundbite. And that is on display here because it's not outright stated, or if there was a developer interview out there, I haven't seen it, but I can absolutely believe that one of the mission statements of this adventure game was to outdo Myst. Because, dear God.
Yeah.
There's no getting around it. This is a Myst clone. And I mean, an actual Myst clone, at least in terms of its mechanics. It's right down there to the fucking details. It's obviously not one-to-one. Myst didn't have this goofy hand thing doing the directionality.
And
but it's moving yeah, it's I guess I have to give credit to this game. You found a way to make Myst more obnoxious.
Yeah.
With this fucking pointer.
The only good thing is it changes when there's something interactable, or else I would have thrown my mouse at the screen by now.
Yeah. And even that's kind of off.
Yeah.
Because I'm not sure what the thought process was behind it, but when you put the hand up, it's not just a straightforward click. It curves to the left and right, and you gotta straighten it out before you can click on the thing.
Well, and you gotta wait for half a second for it to actually see where it's pointing at.
Yes, because once again, Not sure if it's using actual HyperCard technology, but it's functionally the same. Like, even if it's like, I can't believe it's not HyperCard, it's HyperCard, because this is how HyperCard works. It's a bunch of static images stacked onto one another, and you move, and it simulates movement. Except things like this here. Like, this is where the production values are eclipsing Myst. Because Myst wasn't completely bereft of human characters, but for the most part, they were sealed in books, and their visages were postage stamp FMVs. Whereas this is, full screen stop motion puppetry, which actually does fit the style of 1990s, or at least mid 1990s adventure games a lot better than a lot of things did. Like the whole stop and start cadence of mid 90s adventure games works much better with something like this than realistic humans. I'm looking at you, Phantasmagoria series.
Even on the Scum VM thing here, you can tell where it's taking a second to pause to check the disk drive.
Yeah. I'm like, that means that was stuff that was coded in.
Yes.
Actually. Like, because, this is absolutely something that was designed to show off that fancy new CD-ROM technology. And I'm willing to bet that this game came on a few discs. Maybe not the absolute monsters that, say, Ripper or, God help you, the Black Dahlia came on. Like, 8 discs.
Yeah.
This is probably in at, if I had to guess, 2 or 3. In fact, I could probably check Moby Games to see how many discs that it had. But ultimately the point here is it's got better production values, both on a technical and an artistic level, than original Myst did. Though, granted, I am talking about 1993 or 4's Myst. The original version. It's just Myst has had many remasters, remakes, and just updating. Whereas this game has languished in obscurity, and I mean obscurity. I never heard of this game until I got a notification that I had been sent a couple of codes to review.
Yeah. I only knew this game existed because a video essayist I follow on YouTube randomly did a video on this. This was like a few weeks before this was added to the docket, and I guess even before this remaster was announced, maybe, is when he actually made the video.
Right. The point is, and I've name checked quite a few obscure adventure games already. So at the very least, it is good that this has been dug out of its grave. I suppose it's fitting, given all the subject material. Anyway, surprisingly, this is only 1 disc.
That is actually surprising.
I guess stop motion puppetry takes up less space than actual human actors.
Yeah, because there is quite a bit of voice acting in here.
Yes, there is. Once again, it's actually in that regard, it's the antithesis of Myst. Myst was all about silence, mystery, quiet contemplation. this, this is all about constant chatter about a dark and macabre, twisted tale, or at least, a whole bunch of them actually.
As you might expect from a game that is allegedly spotlighting the
because
voice of a
you've got the
writer.
3 Poe tales in here. Yeah. Well, you've got okay, to quote the blurb here. Fully interactive adaptations of The Telltale Heart, The Cask of Amontillado, and Bernice, woven together by an original framing narrative. That's the key here. Yeah, the house segments, they're the original stuff. And it has its own story surrounding a family and a very twisted marriage.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, these people somehow ended up at Capcom. No,
God damn it.
I'm like, yeah, in case you didn't get the reference, like, cousin marriage is a big part of the original story. So, yeah. It's like, sense more in a ew sense. You know, like, that's offending my sensibilities kind of deal, that deals with incest. I'm like, core here. So I'm kind of 2 minds of this game. And honestly, I think the best way to experience this game is to go watch a walkthrough of it.
Yeah. Because, God, this is clunky to play.
At the very least, you do have some legitimate classic poems and stories done by, one of the most famous authors of the last, let's say 200, 300 years, however long it's been. Adapted voices made here. Like, everything's been filtered through a Tim Burton Funhouse mirror. But that's kind of the point. It's just, as an adventure game, it's shit. Like, it's a worse adventure game than Myst. And I actually don't say that lightly. Because at least the actual adaptational segments. The house here, this actually trends more towards traditional adventure game stuff, for good and for ill. Because, once again, it's a mid-90s adventure game, so, Petty's kind of demonstrating it on screen as we speak. There's gonna be pixel hunting. But because you're restricted by the characters, the location, the narrative that has to be told. Like, that really shows up in the cask segment, because it's actual puzzles.
I will muse for long unwearied hours.
Click and get the item kind of deal. Really, the big puzzle was going through the catacombs and looking at samey looking areas. Yes, I'm still mad about it.
Well, and I guess apparently you can also get a different, specifically of the cask, you can get a different perspective, I believe.
Yes. Yeah. You can play as both characters. In fact, you probably need to play as both characters.
Mm-hmm.
Like, at $10, $9.99, which I think is the proper amount of pricing, because that's actually reflective of the work put in. I'm not saying that no work has been put in to bringing the Dark Eye back to the masses, but once again, it's kind of the difference between you put a ROM in an emulator versus what like Digital Eclipse or especially like Night Dive has been doing.
Mm-hmm.
But granted that actually requires quite a bit more in the way of resources than I suspect the new publisher G Media has.
Mm-hmm.
So fair, like, once again, I think $10 is a fair enough price for this game, at least in theory. Once again, I just don't think it's a very good adventure game.
Yeah.
And it's probably best, in contradiction to its new title, instead of experience it as interactive horror, I would go and select it as passive horror.
Mm-hmm.
But that is perhaps a more subjective line of reasoning. Right. Anything else you two want to add to this conversation?
No, get me out of this hell house.
Not really.
Alex?
Not particularly.
All right. So yeah, that'll about 1995 edition. For official purposes, I do have to list that as its title. Like, as Petty Fan will be reviewing Top Shot Pool.